Alright guys, welcome to our spoiler discussion for Tomoyo After. I'm going to do this recording kind of in one go as a podcasty sort of thing, since I'm mostly just going to be talking about things that I found and not necessarily putting myself in a review format. So I played through Tomoyo After to do a review for you guys, and I really had a lot of thoughts that I couldn't put into the review because, well, to be perfectly honest, they were too spoilery. So we're going to get into all of that spoiler stuff now. I'm just going to give you my personal thoughts. It's not really going to change the score I gave it. I thought it was a really good, well-written visual novel, and it really hit me in the feels a lot. I just had some things that I was thinking about and just kind of wanting to talk about, but I couldn't put it in a review. So we're going to get started here. I am putting the warning out now. If you haven't figured it out yet, I am going to go into spoiler territory. If you haven't played Tomoyo After yet, I would suggest you do it before watching this video because I'm going to go into a lot of spoilers here. And yeah. All right, let me just get something to drink here, and we'll get started. So the first thing I wanted to talk about were the character changes between Clannad and Tomoyo After. Tomoyo and Tomoya, I felt, weren't drastically different, but the way they reacted and did a lot of things, and this was much more for Tomoyo than Tomoya, they just kind of felt like different characters. The personality and how Tomoyo reacted to a lot of things, from Tomo coming into their lives and just how she was acting in the intro of the whole VN, it just felt like she was a different character than I remember. Granted, I didn't go back and completely redo the entire Tomoyo route before playing After. It just felt like this was a different character than that tsundere rapid kick girl that I remember from the original work. And then we've got the sex scene changes. Honestly, I don't think H scenes belong in a Clannad VN. With the tone and the theme, it really felt out of place. Now, when I actually saw the scenes, like the ones at the very beginning where Tomoyo and Tomoya are kind of like role-playing, where Tomoya is basically bullying her into, dressing up as a maid, dressing up as a teacher, and doing all of this stuff. After the fact, when I researched it, I thought, oh, that makes sense now for why it's a sex scene. It made sense for why Tomoyo acted a certain way when her brother came in, and honestly, the role-playing thing wasn't really that far out of place, but it made more sense with how lengthy the intro was. So but the biggest change was the one at the very end of the game in Arc. The very end of the first Arc, I'm sorry. What it does really doesn't make a lot of sense, but the way it was worded, they could have worded it a lot better if they wanted to get around the fact that it was a sex scene. Just the way Tomoyo asks him about wanting to do that, it doesn't make sense for her to ask, it's been a long time since we've done role-playing with me as a teacher, but when you think about it as, it's been a long time since we've had sex, I'm like, oh, okay, that was a sex scene. It's super obvious. They really just didn't write around it that well. I mean, honestly, I don't think a Clannad game really needs sex scenes, but, it is what it is. They kind of jumped on the bandwagon of all of these VNs that make sex scenes, like Nekopara, If My Heart Had Wings, The Fruit of Grisaya, and the list goes on. I really think they could have done without it, and based on my research, a lot of other people feel the same in just like online discussions. It just, there's a time and place for it, and Clannad just doesn't really feel like it's that proper place. But let's get out of that and actually talk about the different arcs. The first arc is all about Tomoya and Tomoyo really just going all in on seeing this little girl that got basically given away by her mother, and they just go on this war path of, I have to find out why this girl was given up. I have to go find her mother. I have to figure out all this stuff. And a little bit kind of ties into the whole, why would they do this? Are these the same characters as they were before? Granted, it was a really good and well-written story with Tomo's mother, the little kind of hidden village that they find. It really built up that relationship, especially between Tomoyo and Tomo, really well, especially when you get to the end of Arc 1, where you basically have that situation where Tomoyo doesn't really want to give her up, and there's all of this conflict between the characters as you're trying to build up the school. And honestly, it was well written, but at the same time, it goes into something I didn't understand about the endings. Because when I went for the true ending, I went through the whole thing, and Tomo popped up for a second or two, basically saying, hey, you didn't come and visit me, so I'm coming and visiting you. But with Tomo, I really got attached to her as a character, and when I went through the true ending, I was just thinking, where's the follow-up on Tomo? What's the state of the village? What's the state of her relationship with her mother? Is her mother still alive? Is she still sick? I felt like the true ending just didn't follow up on Tomo that well. As far as, just like tying up all the loose ends of, hey, this is what this person is doing, and here's what's going on here. I mean, I get it. It's supposed to be a tragic ending. It was just one of those things of, I wanted to hear more about what happened with Tomo, and I really didn't get that much out of it. And it's also another reason why I liked the bad endings more, where Tomoya just kind of gives up and the two of them pretty much just raise Tomo as a child. It's a bad ending, but in some ways I felt it was a happier ending than the true ending. Now, of course, going back to that first arc, we have the similarities between the Tomoyo After and the Fruit of Grisaya's Yumiko arc. When Tomoyo is going through all of those fights, when he thinks someone is after Tomo, it really, really reminded me of Yumiko from the Fruit of Grisaya, when the protag had to constantly fight all of these guys that were going after her, when he was basically her bodyguard. Now, it wasn't exactly the same situation, but it was a situation with the protagonist fighting, and even the backdrop looked extremely similar to that part of the of that VN. I mean, it makes sense. Some of the same people were involved, so there are bound to be similarities, but going through that segment just made me think, this is just like in Fruit of Grisaya. This is really, really similar. Because to be honest, I liked Yumiko's arc in Fruit of Grisaya over the other heroines. But I thought it was kind of interesting, I'll say, that it was so similar to that arc. And I know I'm kind of jumping around here, so let's go on to the second arc. So the Amnesia arc, I feel, just came out of nowhere, but it was really, really emotionally powerful. I mean, it was super sad with what's going on from Tomoyo's perspective, and when you see everything Tomoyo fights through with this amnesia that happens over and over and over again. And to be honest, I was expecting to be more satisfied when I got the true ending at the end of the Amnesia arc, and I really just didn't. It was a very tragic ending, And it's worth noting that, well, if you didn't know, the CS edition, the console edition or consumer software edition or whatever you want to call it, actually has an extended ending that wasn't in the original version. That scene right at the end where Tomoyo and Tomoya are together side by side was not in the original version. They added that because of how sad and just devastating the original ending was. It was supposed to be a really sad ending. Because, I mean, if you look back at Clannad, the after story and the canonical ending it's awful and tragic. And Tomoyo After's original ending was tragic as well. Tomoyo fought through all of this stuff, and it's kind of insinuated that even if the surgery was successful for Tomoya, he was still going to die, and she was going to end up without him. So they added this extra part of the ending to make it so that, there was a happier ending. Now, a lot of it is up for interpretation. Some people feel like they met in heaven, that Tomoya still died, and both of them met in the afterlife so they could basically be together forever. Other people think that he made a full recovery and they just went on with their lives afterwards. But it's really interesting because I really teared up hard when I got the true ending, and when I looked it up and saw the original ending, it was just that much more of a tearjerker to say, oh, the original ending was so much worse, so much sadder. And I guess that's part of the whole thing with me not liking how they didn't really follow up on Tomo in the true ending. Because, I mean, I get that the focus was supposed to be on the tragedy of this amnesia, the tumor, and the surgery. But it really just pushed me to, for once, when playing a VN, want the bad ending more than the true ending. It's like, okay, you've got bad endings where they just live together with Tomo. Is it the right thing to do to keep Tomo away from her mother? Probably not. But it raises the question. If that decision keeps this tumor and this amnesia from happening, is it really a bad ending? I mean, there are a lot of ways that you can view it, but just my own personal thoughts, I was just very conflicted when I got that first ending. I thought, is that it? Are we not going to follow up on these characters? Are we not going to hear more about what happened with these? It was one of those situations where you get the true ending and you're supposed to be super fulfilled. And it was like, no, this feels like a normal ending. This feels like something's missing and you're supposed to go back and get more of the star fragments to be able to unlock a better ending that has more information on it and something else happens. And that's not the case. Granted, I don't think it takes away from the fact that Tomoyo After is a really good and well-written visual novel. Because it is. It absolutely is. I just feel that, well, I won't repeat myself again. It just made me like the bad endings more than the true ending, and that's very rare in a VN, or at least the VNs I've played. But anyways, I'm not going to keep droning on. I've been going for like 14 or 15 minutes now. So, yeah. Those are my spoiler thoughts. If you'd like to put your little discussion down here, that would be cool in the comments. Outside of that, I hoped you liked this little podcasty type thing. I'm pretty much not going to edit this. I'm just going to leave it as is, as you just like you would listen to a podcast. Let me know what you think. I know I could probably use some editing, but you know what? I'm trying something new. And if you like this type of thing, I might do it more in the future if I want to just throw in a little podcast to do a little extra discussion for a review or for a game. And, you know, if you want it, I might do it more in the future, or I might not. It's all up in the air. It's just like me with streaming. I did it for a while and who knows. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.